All right, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to do arrays of structs. So let's refresh what we were talking about. We have our struct. So just so we know what our fields are in our struct, we have our structure that's been defined at the top of our program. Type def struct. We have a character array for the last name. We have a double, no, I think we did an integer first. An integer for the ID and a double for the GPA. So we're defining this new data type called student, which gives us the opportunity to declare instances of student. And one type of instance of student is an array. So we can declare our new data type is student, and we can make a list of students, which is an array full of 5 students. Now, obviously, you might want to have more students in your array, probably, but in order to make this understandable, I'm going to start with just a few. So, what does this picture look like? Well, this would be my list, is of data type student. This would be listed index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each one of these items here has a last name, an ID, and a GPA, and a last name, and an ID, and a GPA, etc. However, because I have not initialized anything, I do not have, these have not been filled up yet. So right now, it has a question mark for all of these fields. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that I can fill in this information. Most likely, the best way to do it would be through user input, most likely. You would ask the user to enter the information. So since this is an array, I'm going to declare a number to keep track of how many actual students have been put into my list. And when I start out, I don't have any students in my list. So I could decide to, there's a couple of ways I could go. I could decide to ask the user to tell me how many they want to put in my list, or I could just add one into my list. So let's just start with the straightforward way, and we'll add one into the list. Now, how would I fill the last name, the ID, and the GPA into my list? Well, this is right here. This is list at index 0. This is list at index 0. And this is list at index 1. And this is list at index 2. So any of these items within my list, and this is list at index 3, and this is list at index 4. Any of these items that are in my list are students. So list at index 0 is a student. So in order to put the GPA in there, I would just say list at index 0 dot GPA equals 3.6. So my program then is going to locate list, go to index 0 of that list, and in the GPA field, it's going to put a 3.6. If I say list at index 0 dot ID equals 45, again, it's going to go to the list at index 0 and put a 45. If I said list at index 2 dot GPA equals 4.0, then it will go to list at index 2 right here in the GPA field and put a 4.0. So I have all of these items available, and these are all students. This right here, this is a student. This whole thing right here, this is a double. If I wanted to put a character array, I need to use the string copy function. String copy, because this is C, into list at index 1 dot lname Smith. So I would go to list at index 1, go where the L name is, and put Smith. So obviously I don't have the space to fill everything in, but I hope that you can at least have an understanding here that each one of these elements within my array is a student, and then each one of, when you get to the field, it is the data type of the field. So I'll do it again here. List at index 1, that's a student, and list at index 1 dot LName, that's a character array. All right, now what if I had and I wanted to fill in my character array with user input? So let's go to the next slide. Let's just remember that our fields, we have LName, which is a character array, we have ID, which is an integer, and we have GPA, which is a double. So if I declare an integer num, and then I have an instance of student list, and I'm going to make it size 50. That means it has the potential to store 50 students, but maybe I don't need all 50. So I can ask the user how many students. And I could scan into num, then I would scan into the variable num, because the variable num keeps track of how many students are actually going to be in there. And then I would just use the same loop that you always use to go through an array to start at the beginning. For I equals 0, I less than num. So if the user put in 20, then I would go from 0 to 19, num plus plus, and then I could field by field fill in, enter the L name, enter the last name, then I would scan into %s into list at index I, because I'm going to start at location 0 dot LName. And I will do one for the GPA as well. I don't have the space to do the ID, but you get the idea. So depending on how many items are in my list, then I would want to fill it up field by field. Keep in mind, like I said on the last slide, that list at any index is a student, and list.LName is a character array. Also here, list at any index is a student, and list.GPA, that's a double, so therefore with scanf you need to use the ampersand. In the next video I'm going to show you how to do a pointer to a struct.